everyone. This is the third in the segment of music and Sefira, and I want to reiterate what we said until now. The original custom of Sefira was just not to have weddings. Later on, there was an additional custom not to get haircuts. And much later, the Magen Avraham came along and said you're not allowed to dance. Based on the Magen Avraham, and that's where we left off, some inferred that you're not allowed to engage in what usually induces people to dance, and that is music. So let's start right at the beginning. Musical instruments. The Aruch HaShulchan, Rav Epstein, says explicitly that, indeed, we're not allowed to play musical instruments during Sefira. And he says that ultimately that's learned out from the dancing. He's not alone. The Shut Kinyan Torah by Avraham David Horvitz says exactly the same thing. That even though it's not written in the poskim explicitly, since we have this Magen Avraham, mistama is a nice way of saying probably, hu adin dasur lishtamesh beklei zemer. So let's assume for the sake of the shir that you're not allowed to play musical instruments for fun during Sefira. Does that lend itself to listening to music on your MP3 player or your radio or any other means? So indeed, let's go in order. On this level, there are three opinions. And God willing, today we'll deal with those that forbid, and next time we'll deal with those that allow in some way or another. The Leket Yosher. The Leket Yosher was a very interesting individual. I would say he was very kafuf to his Rebbe. His name was Rav Yosef ben Moshe. His year is 1423 to 1490. He was a Talmud of the famous Trumat Hadeshen, Rav Yisrael Isserlin, that we quoted so many times. And he wrote a book, Leket Yosher, with all the minhagim of his great Rebbe. And in this book, he writes that on Motzei Shabbos, his great Rebbe didn't even sing Eliyahu Hanavi after Havdalah, even though the Ramah says you have to mention Eliyahu Hanavi on Saturday night. He did not sing it because you're not allowed to even sing with your mouth on Sefira. So forget about musical instruments, forget about hearing music, you're not allowed to sing during Sefira. I don't know anyone that paskins like the Leket Yosher, and ultimately people sing during Sefira. Number two, the mainstream opinion that many quote is Rav Moshe Feinstein and Rav Ovadia Yosef and the Tzitz Eliezer. Three major poskim of the 20. They basically say as follows. From this Magen Avraham that says that you're not allowed to go ahead and dance, ultimately we have another sugya we have to deal with. And that is that since the destruction of the temple, you're not supposed to listen to music. And the bottom line is both music with musical accompaniment and music without musical accompaniment. We know there's a term for it because we listen to music all year. As you can see on the screen, the Ramah, the Shulchan Aruch brought a term for it. But, says Rav Moshe Feinstein, at the end of the day, and I quote, "Ubiyamei Sefira, during Sefira, yesh lehesor bezimra demana af lahamitirin." You have to forbid listening to music with musical accompaniment during Sefira, even those that allow it all year. Indeed, this is not a Yigrot Moshe in one place, he repeats it in another place. And he says that in general, he thinks you should be machmir about music all year because of the Gemara in Gittin and the fact that we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. But he says not to limchot, don't go crazy on those that do, because they have matirin, they have the famous Ramah. But b'yamei Sefira, asur l'chulei alma. During Sefira, it's absolutely forbidden according to everyone. The Tzitz Eliezer, Rav Eliezer Waldenberg, the famous posek from Yerushalayim, who was also the posek of the Shaarei Tzedek Hospital, wrote endless volumes of responsum, quotes the Igrot Moshe, and says, Veladati, and in my opinion, just like the 3 weeks, so too with regard to Sefira, afilu hashira v'hazimra, himema shehiklitu mishira v'zimra depeh, hu adin gam b'yamei Sefira. At the bottom line, he says, Asur afilu im hashira v'hazimra himema shehiklitu mishira v'zimra depeh. Even though it's recorded music, not live music, not with musical instruments that are Aruch HaShulchan and our Kinyan Torah mentioned, it's still forbidden. Rav Ovadia Yosef allows music all year based on the Matirin, but when it comes to Sefira, he too is machmir. And he says, B'yamei Sefira, yesh lehimana behechlet, mishmilat kli shir derech haradio. He does allow it at a Seudat mitzvah, saying there's no prohibition there whatsoever, but he does not allow it stam kacha. So opinion number one says you're not allowed to even sing, no one paskins that way. Opinion number two says listening to music with musical accompaniment is absolutely forbidden during Sefira, but singing with your mouth, there's no problem. The third opinion is the Minchat Yitzchak. He says, even though, to be honest, this is a minhag that we can't really see explicitly in the poskim. At the end of the day, we're talking about no one that talks about it. It's a Magen Avram about dancing. Still, we can now add on not to play musical instruments. And he writes a very machmir tshuva about it, but I looked through the tshuva. He does not talk about recorded music. He talks about playing music. So I like to suggest that according to the Minchat Yitzchak, perhaps only live music would be forbidden, but perhaps recorded music would be okay. He doesn't mention it in his tshuva. Many have quoted him l'chumran, saying he meant that too. But again, in his tshuva, looking at his words, he's mentioning klei zemer, as did the Aruch HaShulchan in the Kinyan Torah. He does not mention actual recorded music. So to sum up, there are, on this issue, in terms of those that prohibit, 3 opinions. 1, you can't even sing with your mouth. 2, you can sing with your mouth, but recorded music with musical accompaniment is forbidden. And number 3, only playing musical instruments live, but perhaps recorded music would be okay. God willing, tomorrow we'll deal with those that allow it under certain circumstances and why.